Podcast City Network.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score, episode 130. Just making it happen. The last episode of November before we start getting into December and all the crazy action that'll be happening there. But you gotta make sure to follow us on social media at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. Go on there, smash those like, follow, and subscribe buttons for us. Help spread the word of Final Score. And we definitely appreciate all the supporters we have now. We love you guys so much. We thank you so much for showing us love here on the show and on our post. We definitely appreciate it. And definitely make sure to hit the share and react buttons on this video. That way you can help Final Score get out there even more. But we're going to talk a little bit of college football. And, yeah, it definitely got wild this past weekend, especially when you look at Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan pulling out the huge win, 42-27. Ends up vaulting themselves up into the second position in the CFP top 6. Georgia coming in at number 1 after beating Georgia Tech 45-0. Alabama, man, you want to talk about a squeaker, quadruple overtime to beat Auburn 24-22, and Alabama had to score in the last 30 seconds to be able to even tie the game to send it into overtime after having an offense that just looked anemic. And it was crazy, really crazy game, but Alabama ends up pulling it out and will go on to meet Georgia for the SEC championship, which figures to be a really huge game. And I cannot even tell you how many implications there are going to be for the college football playoff when it comes to that game. It's a huge game. And then coming in at number 4, Cincinnati, undefeated at 12-0 after beating Eastern Carolina 35-13. They're going to face Houston in the AAC championship. Cincinnati trying to be the first non-Power 5 school to make the college football playoff. So it would be very huge and historic, even though a lot of things could be happening with their coach possibly soon, which we're going to touch on more later. Coming at number 5, that was Oklahoma State, 11-1 after beating Oklahoma in a huge win, 37-33. They go on to meet Baylor, who's 10-2 in the Big 12 championship game. That one with a lot of implications, especially for the team right behind them, number 6 Notre Dame, who just lost their head coach, which we'll have more on that later. They beat Stanford 45-14 and capped their season with the only loss being to Cincinnati. So we'll see if Notre Dame's maybe able to squeak in. Need a lot of help to be able to make it. But who knows? This season's been topsy-turvy. Anything, and I mean anything, can happen. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. But top 6, Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and Notre Dame. Definitely going to be interesting when we start getting into the conference championship games. Michigan taking on Iowa, and one I forgot to mention in the Big Ten championship, which is part of our games to watch. Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan favored by 10.5. Over under set at 43.5. This game, I think Michigan should be able to win with McNamara at quarterback and Harbaugh getting this team really buzzing now, especially after that huge Ohio State win. They should be able to get business done against Iowa. That game will be Saturday, December 4th, 8 p.m. on Fox. Another big game will be the Cincinnati Bearcats, who look to stay unbeaten against 11-1 Houston. Cincinnati favored by 10.5, over under at 54. Cincinnati should be able to come out with Desmond Ridder and be able to make this thing happen. Luke Fickell has his team really going, and I think they'll be able to get things going against Houston and be able to get the win. That game also Saturday, December 4th, 4 p.m. on ABC. But the big game that everybody is looking at is the SEC championship game between number 1 Georgia and number 3 Alabama. Georgia looking absolutely amazing with their number 1 ranked defense that is allowing less than 7 points per game, which is huge. But they are favored by 6.5 in this one. I think Georgia's going to be able to win and cover. The offense, they're able to get it done so many different ways, have 3 different options at quarterback, numerous running backs headed up by Zamir White. So much going on for that Georgia team. I think they'll be able to get the job done against Alabama. It'll probably be a tight one, but I think Georgia could take it. But we'll see what happens. Make sure to check out these games and come back next week as we wrap up the college football season and see who's heading where when we recap the college football playoff committee's selections, which will be December 5th for the playoffs. So definitely going to be a huge day. So definitely make sure to come back and join us next week on episode 131, and we'll definitely talk more about that then. But definitely also make sure to check out all the great content platforms that you can find FinalScore on, including Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Bullhorn, Player FM, Listen Notes, Spotify, Castbox, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pandora, and Amazon Music. All those for our audio portions. You can also find our video portions on YouTube and here on Facebook. So definitely make sure to go on either of those. But you can also now find our RSS feed, here on Facebook as well. So definitely make sure to check that out, and you can listen to more audio portions on yet another platform for Final Score. So definitely make sure to check that out and subscribe. Our next topic, though, Lincoln Riley is leaving Oklahoma to be the USC head football coach. Huge news after the kind of career that Lincoln Riley had replacing Bob Stoops in Norman. So absolutely surprising to see Lincoln Riley leave Oklahoma, especially with how well they've been playing. Dante Williams, who served as the Trojans interim coach during Helton's firing, will finish out the season in that role, though, before Lincoln Riley takes over. So he'll be starting fresh in the offseason. Bob Stoops will assume the role at Oklahoma for now and will be coaching them in the Sooners bowl game. Also heading to USC is Alex Grinch, who was the defensive coordinator for Riley at Oklahoma. So he's taking part of his staff with him. And it's just a huge, surprising move. It's really huge to see this. He's also, we found out news today that they have a 5-star quarterback. I cannot remember his name. Has decommitted and is now committing to USC, following Riley also over there. So just huge things happening here. It's been a crazy topsy-turvy couple of days in college football. This story and another one that we'll be talking about after our NFL segment that just resonates. It honestly just resonates. But Riley did guide the Sooners to 4 consecutive Big 12 titles and 3 college football playoff appearances in his first 4 seasons there, and had a lot of success, put out a lot of great players. And it just shocks me that he's actually leaving the Sooners. But Oklahoma is said to be targeting Arizona Cardinals coach Cliff Kingsbury, among others, to replace Riley, which we'll have more news on that as things develop. So definitely make sure to check back next week. I'm sure there's probably going to be more on this come then. Haven't heard from the athletic director yet. Hopefully we'll have some of that news as well. So a lot of craziness, man. Just a lot of craziness in college football right now. But something else that's pretty crazy is all the great Final Score merch that you can find on the Podcast City Network website, because at the PCN shop, they have what you need, whether it's a neck gaiter to protect you from COVID-19, a mug for your morning coffee, or a t-shirt just to look cool. We got you covered. Get the latest apparel and gear for your favorite podcast and Podcast City Network by visiting podcastcity.net/shop and checking out the lineup, which brings us to our NFL Week 13 predictions. Definitely going to be a good one this week, and I definitely need to bounce back after the craziness I had last week. I'm going 6-9, bringing my overall record to 84, 64, and 1. So still not doing too bad. 20 games up right now. Hopefully we can improve upon it this week. And there's definitely going to be a flurry of interesting matchups. Starting with our Thursday game, 7-4 Dallas Cowboys traveling on over to the 5-6 New Orleans Saints. Cowboys have been sputtering as of late, as have the Saints. But I think the Cowboys, with the kind of offense they have, and New Orleans just reeling, turning back to Taysom Hill now, getting first-team reps at quarterback, I think Dallas will be able to capitalize and be able to take this game. It'll probably be closer than what the line originally was for this, but I think Dallas takes it either way. Looking at our Sunday slate of games, though, starting in the 1 p.m. slot, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8-3 taking on the 5-6 Atlanta Falcons in an NFC South matchup. This game, with the Buccaneers playing the way they have been, they just keep finding ways to win no matter who the opponent is. I think can get it done against the Falcons, who have just been reeling, having injuries also to their running back, which hasn't helped. Matt Ryan not looking all that great. No receiving help. Calvin Ridley out. Julio Jones is gone. Things just don't look good in Falcon land right now. So I think the Bucs end up taking this one. It could be a sizable win. The line, I think, was set right around, 10.5. So definitely make sure to check it out. will be an interesting game for sure, but I think the Bucks end up taking it big. Next game, though, we have the 9-2 Arizona Cardinals taking on the 4-7 Chicago Bears. Bears not looking all that great even after a win against Detroit, which Detroit should have won again, but found a way to lose per usual. Arizona, though, has been really on top of things, going 9-2, being able to push themselves to this point. I think Arizona is going to be able to get this win against a lowly Chicago team that's just still trying to find itself. Arizona and a big win. Next one, though, we have the 6-5 LA Chargers against the 7-4 Cincinnati Bengals. These Chargers have been the most disappointing team, I feel like, in football, just because there was so much tout, so much clout with them coming in, with Justin Herbert under center in his sophomore year, especially after winning Rookie of the Year, that this team was going to be one to beat. And I'm really surprised that they've stumbled to this 6-5 record. But they are still around, still pesky, but not going to be pesky enough because I think Cincinnati ends up taking it. The offense is more dynamic. They need a bounce back after what happened last week. I think Cincinnati ends up taking this one in nice fashion. Our next game, though, we have the 5-6 Minnesota Vikings taking on the 0-10-1 Detroit Lions. Remember, you can't go 0-17 if you have a tie. But at the end of the day, the Vikings are going to be kind of reeling at running back, having Calvin Cook out after dislocating his shoulder. Definitely a huge blow to that team. But Kirk Cousins still having a quietly decent game as long as he can remember who to line up under. Oh my gosh, I can't even English right now. But just don't line up under the guard. It's that easy. So as long as he remembers that it's the center he lines up under, I think the Vikings end up taking this win in pretty big fashion. Justin Jefferson, I think, will be able to have a standout game. Our next game, we have the 4-7 New York Giants taking on the 5-7 Miami Dolphins. Giants coming off that win against the Eagles, which was a huge win for them. But the Dolphins, hey, they're the Dolphins, and I think they're going to be better than the Giants. And call it giant hate, I don't care. Dolphins win this one in a close one. Our next game, we have the 5-7 Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 3-8 New York Jets. Jets looking like hot garbage this year. Still have Joe Flacco under center, if I am not mistaken. We have the Philadelphia Eagles coming off that loss against the Giants. Eagles definitely need to bounce back, and I think they'll be able to bounce back here and be able to dominate defensively against the New York Jets. Eagles take this one, and I think it'll be a sizable win. Our next game, though, we have the 6-6 Indianapolis Colts taking on the 2-9 Houston Texans. Houston looking like complete garbage. Heard a stat where the touchdown they scored, the rushing touchdown by Tyrod Taylor recently, was the first touchdown they had on the road in almost a year. Like, that was ridiculous. But still, Indianapolis looking hot, took Tampa to the limit, 6-6 quietly. I think Indianapolis is able to capitalize and be able to beat the Texans. Looking at our 405 games, though, we have the Washington Football Club at 5-6, taking on the 6-5 Las Vegas Raiders. Washington dominating Seattle this past week, looking great. Las Vegas getting a huge win against the Cowboys on Turkey Day. Absolutely crazy to see what these teams have been able to do. And I think that this will be a knockdown, drag-out game between these two clubs. But I think Washington ends up taking it in a close one. Could be a last possession game. But I think Tyler Heineke and this team is going to be able to win the game. Our next game in the 405 slot, though, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-9 taking on the 7-4 LA Rams. The Rams need to bounce back in a huge way, looking dismal in their last 3 games, not being able to get it done. Matt Stafford banged up, and they need a good rehabilitation win, and that's what they're going to get right here against the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer, this team's in all kinds of trouble in all kinds of different ways, and the Rams are going to be able to capitalize and win this game. Calling probably a 7 to 10 point win just because Matt Stafford's banged up, but Rams win it regardless. 425 games, we have the 8-3 Baltimore Ravens taking on the 5-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. Flat out, I think Ravens are going to be the better team. Even with Lamar Jackson having his woes recently, I think Baltimore gets back on track and takes down the Big Ben Steelers and ends up getting this win, push themselves to 9-3. Our next 425 game, though, we have the San Francisco 49ers at 6-5 taking on the 3-8 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle looking just bad right now. Can't get anything going offensively. Defense is hit or miss. San Francisco, though, has been quietly kind of getting themselves going again, and I think San Francisco is going to be able to capitalize and get this win and push themselves further to 7-5. So definitely see how that one works out, but definitely keep an eye out on the 49ers. They're quietly putting together a decent little season. They can just keep it going. Our Sunday night game, though, we have the 6-5 Denver Broncos taking on the 7-4 Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City definitely starting to get on more of a roll as of late. Denver, though, has been honestly a really hot and cold team, beating teams they shouldn't and then losing teams they should. It's just interesting to see what's going on over there in Mile High. So I think this is going to be a cold day. Kansas City's going to come out and be able to put up some points and be able to take this one pretty handedly against the Denver Broncos. Our Monday night game, though, we have the 8-4 New England Patriots taking on the 7-4 Buffalo Bills. This game can be interesting for a number of reasons. Buffalo is favored, but I think the Patriots are going to be able to take this one on the road. Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, be able to come up with a good game plan and be able to get it done against this Buffalo team. Josh Allen having all kinds of different issues right now, and I think will crack under pressure. Patriots take this one in a close one. But that was our NFL Week 13 predictions. Definitely make sure to check back next week for episode 131 to see how I did and see what my overall record is come then. Hopefully you can push it higher and have a good week, but we'll see what happens. But you need to check out Podcast City Network and all the great things that are going on over there, because FinalScore is a proud member of Podcast City Network and is 20-plus independent podcast members across all genres of podcasting. You can find PCN on all major social media platforms, including Facebook at facebook.com/Podcast City Network, on Twitter at Podcast City Net, on Instagram at Podcast City Net, on YouTube by searching Podcast City Network, and on the website podcastcity.net. Be creative, be independent, be yourself. Podcast City Network. But that does bring us to some huge news that honestly affects me pretty deeply, and that is LSU has hired Notre Dame's Brian Kelly to be their next head football coach. Huge surprising move, especially after the 11-1 year Notre Dame had. Brian Kelly had been at Notre Dame for 12 years, so very surprising to kind of see this happen. But he does agree to a 10-year, $95 million contract plus incentives. So definitely got paid, but he officially will be introduced tomorrow at 1 p.m. by LSU as the new coach. And Brian Kelly's also hoping to pull defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman with him to LSU. So Notre Dame's taking some huge hits here in recruiting. They're going to take a huge hit, obviously losing the head coach before a bowl game or possible playoff berth, losing their defensive coordinator possibly as well. So these are huge, huge hits to Notre Dame right now. But Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick said he's not worried. He thinks Notre Dame's in a fine position. They'll be able to find the guy they need, and that there'll be no interim head coach for the time being, which is interesting just because you want to have somebody leading these guys, but he feels like the coaching staff, as long as they stay intact, should be strong enough on their own, per his words. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But for Kelly, he won 113-40 while at Notre Dame to become the winningest coach in program history, which included a BCS championship appearance in 2012 and 2 college football playoff appearances in 2018 and 2020. A lot of recent success at this program. So kind of surprised to see him leave, but he does go and replace Ed Orgeron, whom LSU announced on October 17th would not return as coach in 2022, which was less than 2 years removed from their undefeated season in a national championship. So that was surprising as well. But Kelly will go in, replace that staff, and try to find that natty, which is what I think he's really ultimately chasing. So huge move, really shocking, and I know it definitely cuts me pretty deep, real deep. Like, definitely blindsided me. So we'll definitely see how it works out. But you definitely need to also check out City Limits Tap Room in beautiful DeLand, Florida. And if you don't know about City Limits Tap Room, then you need to check them out at 4425 North US Highway 17 in DeLand, Florida. A lot of great stuff going on there, inside and outside bar, outside lounging area. Going to be set up for live entertainment here soon. A lot of great stuff going on over there. Definitely need to check them out. And all the TVs, so many sports always playing in there. So definitely make sure to check them out in beautiful DeLand, Florida. But that does bring us to good old meme madness, which we definitely have a few good ones lined up for today. Our first one that we're going to be showing off is good old Chad Ochocinco, who said he used to call his Bengals coaches at 2 a.m. while they were sleeping just to tell them he was open and then hang up immediately. Oh, man, that's a good one. Definitely a good one. Our next one, though, says, ladies and gentlemen, Kirk Cousins. Oh, that's from his blunder against the 49ers when he lined up under the guard instead of the center. Yeah, way to go there, Kirk Cousins. I say something nice about you, and look what you do. But this next one says, you got to quit football if a 44-year-old man does this to you. Oh, Tom Brady just running over a dude. Look at that. Absolutely crazy. Next one, though, says, I suck. Way to go, Cam Newton. Way to go. Oh, man. Definitely not having a good day, and he got benched. But Big Ben and Cam Newton have something else in common. They're just like each other, trash. Oh, me. Definitely some good stuff. Our next one, though, says the Rams are 0-3 since acquiring OBJ and Von Miller. Definitely interesting. And I love that they used the New York Giants photo on this. Oh, that's good stuff. Definitely good stuff. But our last one of the evening says Russell Wilson this season. Oh, Tiger Woods mugshot. That's great. Oh, that's great stuff. But that was our meme madness. We thank you guys so much for viewing. If you're listening to our audio portions, you can find the video portions of our show on YouTube and on Facebook. Just search PCN Final Score, and you'll be able to find them in the video sections there. A lot of great content, a lot of great stuff, and just search for Meme Madness on the video. A lot of great content, I'm telling you. But you can also talk about Podcast City Network and the fact that you can join Podcast City Network, because have you always wanted to start a podcast but didn't know how? Do you already have a podcast but don't know how to grow it? Are you trying to find ways to make your podcast profitable? You can learn to do it here at Podcast City Network. We offer consulting services and tutorial classes to help with learning to better expand your knowledge and to grow your show. We also give access to our network of shows to help with cross-promotion, guests, and overall reach, while also becoming a part of our ever-expanding PCN community based on people helping people. And the best part is, no membership fee. So what are you waiting for? Go to podcastcity.net/join now and join the fastest-growing independent podcast network around, Podcast City Network. Which that does bring us to the good old give or go. A lot of good topics today. Well, not a lot, but got a couple of them. Our first one, though, says Carolina Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey is going to miss the rest of the season due to an ankle injury. So this is the second time that we've seen him go down for the year. Gotta say, you know, Christian McCaffrey is a great player, but these injury woes just derail the crap out of him. But the team did say they have no intentions of putting him on the trade block, so they're definitely going to try and gut it out with him. But, man, just bad luck, really, really bad luck for Christian McCaffrey in this Panthers squad. Hopefully he's able to bounce back and get going again and be able to do something. But, yeah, definitely bad news for them. Our next one says that Arizona Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury is staying focused on the current season and not the Oklahoma Sooners coaching vacancy. Doesn't mean he isn't thinking about it. And that's something to keep in mind with this, because at the end of the day, once the NFL season ends, Oklahoma could just be biding their time and waiting. Who knows? But I don't know if he'll actually make the jump, kind of going backwards, going from NFL to college. But if the money's right, who knows? Sooners got deep pockets. So definitely see what happens. And, of course, we'll definitely report it here on Final Score once we find out more. But that was our give or go, which definitely means it is now time to talk about PodChaser, because Apple Podcasts is no longer the only credible source for podcast discovery. You can follow creators and browse every podcast ever and rate and review episodes. Just go to podchaser.com and search keyword Final Score, one word, and follow, rate, and review us. And that definitely helps go a long way with us being able to try and get out there more. So definitely help us by going to PodChaser and hitting that follow button, hitting that rating button, and leaving us a review. We definitely greatly, greatly appreciate it. But that does bring us to the week ahead. Of course, all the NFL Week 13 action, which you can see what my picks were earlier in the show. You can also check back next week with episode 131 to see how I did. There's also the College Football Conference Championship weekend with all the conference championship games that'll be happening. Our picks were earlier for our games to watch. Definitely make sure to check that out. But you also need to check out the PCN Sports lineup, including a new season of Not a Hockey Market podcast, the Nest podcast, the Rip Griffin Show, the Sportszilla podcast, and, of course, Fixed Edge, which was live earlier today at noon. But you also can check out Final Score episode 131 next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern here on Facebook Live. But we thank you guys so much for watching and definitely sticking around for us. But until next time, I'm Chris, and you guys have just watched Final Score. Y'all have a great night.
Podcast City Network.